Welcome back to the Unapologetically Strong Army Edition podcast. I am super excited. We got another guest. Tim, do you want to introduce him?
Yeah. So I've known Josh for 6 months probably, and maybe even a little bit longer. So we connected in mutual ideas on social media. I'm like, man, this dude thinks really, really cool. And he started following my stuff, and I started following his stuff, and see how much we're kind of the same brothers from another mother. And so we meet weekly to bounce ideas off of, and really, really, really neat guy. And so yeah, it's a privilege to have you here today, Josh. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the Army edition of the podcast.
Yes. And you were in the Army, right? It wasn't like Marines or another.
Yep.
So we need to call this the military edition.
We thought that after our guest the other day. I didn't realize he was a Marine, and I said Army edition.
Yep. Those Marines will be like, "We're not in the Army.
We're not in the Army."
Yeah.
And you can hear him say, like,
corrected me
when he mentioned the Air Force too. It was in utter disdain.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we like to make fun of those guys a lot. Like they're not really in the military. But yes.
Yeah. So what made you want to join the Army?
So September 11th is what had me join the Army. I initially went and talked to a recruiter. I was in college at the time at Texas Tech University, and shortly after, a friend of mine went and joined, and can't remember what he did. I think he went to comm school communication, something like that afterwards. And then I decided not to join right away because I was still in school. And after talking to the recruiter, he was like, if you finish, then you can be an officer instead of being, enlisted and everything. And so then my cousin joined, and he called me. And this was probably 6 months later, maybe. And he called me and was like, "Hey, I just joined, I think it was Patriot Systems missile defense. So the Patriots that shoot down other missiles and all of that." So he went into that. And he was like, "They're giving like huge bonuses. You should really come talk to my recruiter." And so I was like, all right. So I jumped in my truck, and I lived in Lubbock at the time, going to Texas Tech, and I drove all the way to Dallas to talk to his recruiter. Not that they didn't have recruiters right there in Lubbock who I'd already talked to. And his recruiter was like, "Yeah, huge bonuses now, to join and go overseas and, to Iraq." And I think it was maybe it been a $30,000 bonus, something like that. And
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm taking it. So I joined the infantry. So I was 11 Bravo infantry.
Gotcha. So was there a reason the Army and not a different branch, or?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Really, I'd never, I knew I wasn't going to go to the Marines, talking about that and everything, just because, they typically don't have the best equipment. They don't have the best, they get less funding and all of that. And I knew, just straight up being a jarhead and, having a miserable life just to have a miserable life. Me.
We do it rough just to do it rough.
Right. Just to do it that way. And there's pride in that. And I get that and everything, but yeah, not for me. And then I actually had a lot of friends that were in the Air Force, Clovis, New Mexico, the base there, and everything was really, really. And they were all like, "You're crazy, that you should join the Air Force. It's it's so lax, and
Yeah.
all of that." Um, but I guess maybe in the Three Little Pigs, or no, not Three Little Pigs, the dang, I can't think of it. Three Bears. There we go. Maybe that one was too soft. We went too hard, too
Oh,
soft.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And
Goldilocks, just
yep,
right.
yep, exactly, exactly. And then I knew I wasn't going to go to the Navy because I can't swim well, so I wasn't going to do that. And I'm also 6'4", and I didn't think that being on a boat was going to be very conducive to my height. So we had the Army left, right? So I said, yeah, not too hard, not too soft, just right. Big bonus. So I was looking at all of the highest bonuses. And another little aside in the story is, um, I had a girlfriend at the time that I thought I wanted to marry, and I was like, I'm going to go make a life for us, right? So took off with that as well, and those thoughts. So that's why I went Army infantry. I did know that I wanted to deploy, and wanted to see uh, the world. Which kind of leads to a funny aside. Later, I had a friend who was in the Navy on the hospital ship, and she was like, "If you wanted to see the world, you should have joined the Navy and been on the hospital ship because you would have seen the best of the world,
Literally,
not just
yeah.
war zones."
Yeah. Yeah. But, if you're super tall and, you don't swim the best, I'd probably not be the best
Yeah.
experience.
I
Nope,
I
no
had no
problem.
idea that you were that tall because, like, so the way that you present by looking at you, you just seem like you're very average. But I haven't, seen you in person. So
Yeah, no, I'm now 6'4", 280, and I was a
yeah.
power lifter for
Oh,
about
okay,
eight.
beast.
So yeah, uh, fatter than I used to be, but still well muscled.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you know, like our son is he's at basic training right now in Fort Jackson. And so basic training is a huge topic of conversation for us right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious, like, what was the hardest part of basic for you?
Oh man, um, so that's really digging back into the files,
That's a long
searching
time ago,
Yeah.
yeah, the
huh? How
files.
long ago was that?
So that would have been what, 2001, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
So
25
25
years ago.
years.
yeah, yep. And so what was the hardest part, man? Um, it and it doesn't matter anymore. But the hardest part was being away from the girl that I thought I was going to, marry and everything, and it actually caused us to break up. So
Yeah.
yeah, so me being God and everything, which is a kind of a crazy story, but I found out later that the reason we broke up was because her sister started erasing all of my messages and intercepting my mail and destroying it. 'Cause she didn't like
Oh,
me.
She didn't like you, huh?
that's terrible.
Yeah, yeah, I found that out later. We reconnected years later, years after I got into,
Yeah.
I was actually in active duty now and stationed and everything else, and we had reconnected for a brief period of time. And um, she was like, "Yeah, I found that out and could have, liked to killed her, but then you moved on and everything else." So I was like, "Yep, yep, that's what happened." So that was probably in my mind the hardest part at the time. Like
Yeah.
just to shoot straight and everything, was very excited to be away from home. To be, I'd always had an adventurous spirit. So even though it was, Fort Benning, Georgia, to me it was like the furthest I had ever been before that, from Lubbock, was Dallas, and it was 6 hours away or something like that, maybe 8 hours. And so being in a different state, I was just like, this is amazing. It doesn't look like, Lubbock, Texas. There's trees and pines. And I love the physical activity, every single day. I loved rucking. My mom would ask me all the time, like, do you get bored on ruck marches and stuff? And I was like, absolutely not. And she was like, what do you do? I was like, I just think the whole time,
Yeah, right. It's a good time to
quiet,
think.
just, yeah, to be there. I remember writing letters home because we, learned so many weapon systems being in the infantry. We've got, M4s and M9s and 249s and 240s and grenade launchers and uh, uh, goodness gracious, grenades and can't think of the things front towards the enemy, but I can't remember what they are right now in my head that would shoot the ball
Rocket
bearings out.
launchers? Or...
No, it's but we did have AT4s, rocket launchers and everything. So I just remember just enjoying that
Yeah.
so much, just shooting all of those things and doing all of that. So see, even Brighton agrees. She's laughing at the
Yeah. So I've heard, I mean, as hard as it is physically and basic, I am hearing from so many people that it's more so the mental side than the physical side, although the physical is still really hard, but it's more mental.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely can be. I, I think I was just ready for a change. I think that's really what it was, Jamie. And I would just had my my head on straight for what I knew, we were doing and my purpose there and all of that. And it just made it, um, you know, uh, I don't know, a lot easier and everything. So, uh, and maybe this part of it and everything is like I have ADD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so going there and having ADD and just having, this is when you eat, this is where you go, this is what you do, so
Yeah.
structured and everything, and just plugging me into that, um, you know, for whatever reason, like it just really worked for me to
Mm-hmm.
to to
Wonder
get into
Yeah.
if our son's gonna have that same kind of structure and relief too. Because man,
Yeah.
he was bouncing
Yeah.
off the walls, like he is like it was nuts.
Yeah. He has
Yeah,
ADHD.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
For him, he has a hard time with just standing there. So like reception and anytime you just stand there, like he's like, I'm going crazy. I
yeah,
need to move. I need to do something. And so that's been really hard for him.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see him loving that structure.
Yeah, yeah, the discipline and everything just helps me, so much. In fact, a lot of times the two things that I say that I miss the most and everything from it is first the camaraderie, the guys and
Mhm.
everything, just amazing relationships out of that. And then the discipline, is the second thing that I really miss because it's just all set up for you. In fact, one of the things that, with my ADD and how I would describe it to people is just like a shooting range. You have a left limit and a right limit. So you don't shoot past the left limit. You don't shoot outside of the right limit. You stay in your lane. But what I realized, and it really helped me succeed in the military and everything, was that within that lane, I got to be as creative as possible. I got to
There you
think
go.
so
Yeah.
much and apply, what I was learning, what I was doing. And when you get a team, it's the same thing. Now my lane just expands, and then I got a squad and then I got a platoon. And, as long as I stayed in my lane and, uh, accomplished missions within that left and right limit, man, the sky was the limit for me.
Yeah.
How old were you
Totally.
when you went in?
17.
Okay.
Wow.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I
Yeah.
graduated high school early and went in at 17.
Yeah. Was there a
Okay.
moment that you thought about quitting, but you pushed through?
Not in basic training at all. No.
No.
Yeah, no. I mean, the answer was always no.
It's just
Like,
it was
like
always like,
getting out,
cool.
was even one of the hardest decisions I ever made, and it was, because I got married and my wife Kelly, um, she was born and raised in the DC area, and we'll kind of get to that in a minute because I've had kind of an interesting career in that sense, especially being an infantryman, and so. Uh, she, had just broken into the government and everything and didn't want to leave. And I was like, but I love the army. I want to stay in. So I actually joined the National Guard after my time active duty because I wanted to keep going and keep doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it was the only way I could uh, really keep her and, keep
Yeah.
doing what I
So
wanted.
so you can be pried away from it is what that was your
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
good.
Yeah.
Tell us about infantry for those people that don't know. I mean, we might get a picture from like movies or something, but we don't really know what's going on. What's
Yeah.
infantry?
Yeah, so the infantry is what you would think of as a common foot soldier. So, back in the day that would be like a Roman legionary you see in the movie and everything who, carries a spear and a backpack and the only thing that changed was the spear turned into an M4 and you still carried a backpack.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
not a big difference there. Nowadays, we typically are the guys that do the house to house fighting since most everything is in urban terrain. But if you think back to World War II and everything, most of the infantry is going to be the guys that jumped in, 82nd, 101st Airborne, that secured Normandy, secured the land and then fought forward all the way to the Battle of the Bulge. Band of Brothers is about,
Okay.
infantry
Yeah.
at the
Hmm.
101st. Um, and so that's what we did then. And then now, like I said, it's mostly the house to house securing, house to house, street to street, block to block,
So if
all the
you're like in Iraq and you're here just to clear an area and there's a lot of stuff going on, you like go boots on the ground, kick indoors, like this whole thing, or
Yep, yep, yep.
okay.
That's exactly how it works. A lot of the infantry units are the guys who supported the special forces and the SEAL teams in Afghanistan and in Iraq, providing security and cordon and all of that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was the infantry and the troop surge. I mean, we can't take all the credit, but that goes in and secure those countries. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, we watch a movie on TV and there's army scenes or whatever, right? How different does actually living that? How different is it actually being in the army versus what we see on movies? Like, what's some of the main differences?
Um, Probably the waiting is probably one of the biggest differences in everything. I mean, there really is, a lot of downtime and everything. In fact, that was probably one of the biggest gripes is, you get there in the morning at 5:30 for 6 o'clock, first formation, 6:30 PT, and then, at 5 p.m., if you're in garrison, right, 5 p.m., you're, uh, you know, supposed to go home, and then next thing you know, it's 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. You're just literally sitting, waiting, somewhere to be released, and you're like, "What is happening?"
Mhm.
And generally that's because, decisions are being made above you, and everything has to, cascade, um, down. But when you're in the field, I felt like it was, or deployed, I felt like it was very uh, similar to movies and everything. If you're in the field, you're practicing as if you are
Mhm.
fighting and everything. The training there and everything is uh, really, really good, tons of leadership and everything. So, that you're getting. So I found that, my experience and everything, um, in those areas and everything was very similar, but and this is where I'll talk about one part of my career, which makes it very interesting, is that my first unit station, unlike so many people, I actually went to the old guard. Okay, and so the old guard is the ceremonial unit of the army, and so I was there for 7 years. And there's a movie about
Wow.
it too called Gardens of Stone. And so the unit that I was in, um, the main duty and everything is uh, conducting the burials, for everybody who is passing in the war, and being killed in action,
Yeah.
and all of that. Plus people who, are older and everything, World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans, and everything that passed away that earned the right to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery. And so our base, Fort Myer, was connected directly to Arlington National Cemetery. So if y'all get the chance, check it out, Gardens of Stone. I think it
Yeah.
was James Caan, but he was like a young man in it and everything. But that movie is about Bravo Company, and Bravo Company is where I started there. So yeah, my first years um, were really in Arlington National Cemetery, burying those guys and participating in those ceremonies and doing uh, wreath layings at the Tomb of the Unknown, because the tomb is part of um,
Yeah, that's
Fort
where they
Myers.
do like the ritual, the walking out and all of that different stuff. And like, yeah, so I'm just minorly familiar with what you're talking
Yeah.
about. But it shows me that there is so many things to do. Like
Yes.
you
Mhm.
can there's it's so vast of what you can end up doing. Like
It
it's
it
crazy.
really is. So I mean, it's probably why I have a hard time of telling people, should you join, should you not join. A lot of times I'm like, do you know what you want to do? And if somebody's like, no, then I'm like, okay, go join, because you can get trained in this and everything and get a lot of experience, in communications and intelligence and computer coding. I have a friend uh, uh, who is I don't know what he's worth now, 100 million, $200 million. And he started as a computer coder guy in the Marines, in fact. And he got out um, and uh, created and helped IPO 3 companies and everything. And now he's,
Yeah.
multi millionaire. And he just started as a kid in Florida who did not know what he wanted to
Wow.
do with his life, you know? So,
Yeah.
that part of service is real. It helped
Mhm.
me, in developing, who I am. And, me and Tim talked about this before and everything, but what's the major thing that I learned and everything? Well, it was leadership, and I think your son being in combat arms as well, because he's artillery, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he will learn that skill as well, more than anything. And uh, it will serve you, your entire life, your ability
Yeah.
to lead, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being in that position for 7 years, how do you think that shaped you? Like, was it hard? Because I can imagine like doing funeral after funeral and all that stuff. Like it could get really hard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so there's a couple of specialty platoons. The Tomb is one of them that you can go and actually try out for, and it's a rigorous process to uh, be accepted and everything there. There's the drill team, the guys who throw the rifles and do all the precision stuff that travel around, America and everything. And there's Caisson, so that's going to be the guys that actually work with the horses and everything that pull because it's still horse drawn for the coffins. They're still pulled by horse.
Wow.
And then there is CCG, Continental Color Guard, and that's what I did. So after about 4 years on funeral duty, yes, I had enough.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I don't even know how many, funerals I've been to in my life now, just hundreds and hundreds of funerals. And yes, it had wore on me. So I tried out for CCG, Continental Color Guard, and they are the color guard that actually carry the nation's flag and the Army's flag at major events, Super Bowl, Final Four, high funerals. I actually carried the presidential flag at Reagan's and carried the national flag at Ford's funeral. So
Wow.
yeah. So I got to be part of those and everything, and that was just really, really cool. I met congressmen and senators and prime ministers. I've met the Supreme Court, at the time doing that, and met the Queen of England while she was still alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
That's
it
cool.
was like I said, very weird career I've had. So.
Yeah. What I'm seeing through this too also is not only can you do so much, but you also can't plan what your destiny particularly looks like, because it's like you never would have think, here I am shaking or meeting the Queen of England or these other people. You just can like write that all down,
Yeah, you never
pretty
know
cool.
where
Never
everything's
know.
going to lead you, and I think that's just big part of the excitement of life. So yeah.
So neat.
Yep. Here I was joining the Army thinking I'd be like many of my peers, deployment after deployment after deployment. And my first 7 years I spent doing that, and I would have never expected that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how long did you stay in the Army before you transferred to the Guard?
Yeah. So that was my 7 years, and then I went over to
7
the
years
Guard
total.
at the end of that 7 years when me and Kelly got married. And the Guard unit that I was in Leesburg, Virginia, which is just right outside of DC. So it was really a hop, skip, and a jump over to my Guard unit. And then very, very quickly, very funny, joined the Guard and we deployed. Yeah.
I'm gonna go here so I can keep it. Then there you go.
Yep. Virginia National Guard was one of the most deployed units. The governor and then the state's general. For some reason I can't think of what they're called right now, but they deployed us, a lot. I served with guys who had been on, 6, 7, 8, 9, deployments. Some of these guys, just went back to back to back to back to back, because and for the really the reason that you would think and everything, it was money, like they didn't have anything else going on, and there's so many deployments and everything that they couldn't really take full-time jobs, so they would just start jumping on deployments because when the National Guard deploys, say your state deploys, if there's openings, and there often will be, then they will ask for volunteers from other states. So these guys would go with Massachusetts units, they'd go with Idaho units, and then they'd come back and then be deploying again with Virginia. So some of these guys, it's very interesting because you think active duty has like all this combat experience. I served with guys that had way more combat experience than I had. One guy, I won't say his name just because I didn't ask permission and everything, but he had fought in every major battle in Iraq and a couple of them in Afghanistan too.
Wow. And that's the National Guard?
Yeah, through the National Guard.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you go from one branch to another, do you have to like kind of start back at the beginning? Like you got to go back to basic
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No. So I'm not sure about that if you go. So it was Army National Guard. So like for me,
Okay.
going straight over, maintained my rank, maintained everything. and join there. If you go, Navy to Air Force or something like that, I believe there is a shortened version of what you have to go to that
Yeah.
Gotcha.
gives you that. I do know we had a couple of people change their MOS, so that their job, their occupation, um, into infantry while I was in basic, and so they joined us later to just get all of the infantry skills and everything, and they didn't do um, the first part of basic. Oh,
Okay.
Gotcha.
So how long were you in the National Guard? So what's your total span here for
yep.
the
So 13 years
13 years?
is
Nice.
is how long, and yeah, I had a good run. Liked my active duty time. I loved my National Guard time. Some of the best guys that I've ever served with and trained and everything was during my National Guard time. And um, again, the only reason I got out then was really it was things were changing. So they started to bring in. You had to do more online education and all this stuff, for promotion and all of this. And I think I was kind of in that era, that last era of, you served your time, in grade, you served your time in rank, uh, you had really high, evaluation reports. You could move, shoot, and communicate, qualify expert, pass your PT test, with a 270 and above, those types of things. And then all of a sudden it was like, you got to do all of that. And you've got all this other military education and different education pieces that you have to do outside.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I had caught the CrossFit bug and wanted to start my own gym. So I got out to start my own CrossFit gym.
Oh, nice.
Well, that's awesome.
I like CrossFit.
Okay.
CrossFit's cool.
Yeah.
So, thinking about how like life was in the military, okay, and you come out and you're amongst all these civilians, right? What is something that like civilians will complain about, and you're like, "Are you serious?" Like, what makes you laugh?
Yeah, yeah. So especially when I first got out, it was everything. I mean, it was everything. So my first job when I got out, as I was getting my plan together and getting money together to start the school, I was working a security job because that's what most, you know, infantry guys did and everything. If they weren't going to go be cops, because that would be the other thing
Yeah.
go and do. And so I'm working security and everything, and I like the things that just kind of shocked me and everything was just like, number one, just like not knowing your job. Like, hey, this is your job, and there's, it's very simple to do and everything. Just go check on everything and uh, check doors, do all of this and everything, and yet you'd have to constantly tell people to do it and everything versus them just doing it because it
Mhm.
was their
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
So that was probably, number one. And I really butted heads with a lot of people and everything. And, on that, you know, uh, in that job. So that was probably, you know, uh, number one. Number two is just, you know, uh, just like how to get things done, like how to accomplish, goals and stuff like that, like how to make a plan, and that really shocked me and everything. But that was probably good because it led to my career
Mhm.
in coaching and
Yeah.
helping people, and
Yeah.
CrossFit and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So to realize that, people don't know how to, backwards plan, people don't know how to risk mitigate, people don't know how uh, to do all of that. So the knock on me and what I had to learn was empathy. So I had to learn empathy, be able to, um, not just bark orders and direct people and all of that, but figure out how to navigate with people, learn how to coach people. It's a big part of, who I became, everything, not just as director. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I imagine that positional authority and attention to detail, and there's so many things, and even like core values. Like there's so many things that you guys have that are really really strong and drilled into you.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, they form like all of this stuff into you. So it's like
Yep.
all of
Yep.
those details, all that stuff matters, and then to get out, and it's like you have no attention to details. You have no discipline. You have no like, and then feeling like you just want to like backhand people. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And it's simple. The way, like, what do you have to be able to do, right? You have to be able to move, shoot, communicate, land nav, do PT, right? And keep your equipment, you know? But that's simple in most people's lives. And this is where the empathy really comes in. And everything I realized is like their lives are so much more complex than that. So much more complex than that, and yes, they do it to themselves, you know, but it happens, right? So that was one of the things, like I expected when you showed up, you knew your job, you're trained, if I was training you, we were doing this and this is the only thing we're doing. And just realized that, that ownership and everything that I had, in the military, and I'd learned some coaching skills and everything in the military and learned some of that, but I still, and uh, good thing, bad thing, had the threat of punishment.
Yeah.
We can't, you. By the time I got in, you couldn't hit people, you couldn't do any of that anymore. But you could still give them extra work. You could dock pay. You could, um, remedial PT. I mean, there's so many things that you could still do that. Uh, so it just makes you, learn to be an even, better leader when you get out and those things are not available to you. Those tools are not available, right? And yeah, so you have to really start to learn, like, what motivates people, right? And
Mhm.
once you start to figure out, what actually motivates individuals and everything, you can really accomplish a lot when it comes to your mission.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So one thing I've seen, because I've been connecting with a lot of different moms,
Yeah.
um, because for as mom, like it's really helped. And there's something I've kind of noticed, and I'm really curious if this is something new with like the newer generations, or if you saw this when you were in as well. But so many of the moms are like, "That's my baby. Like, be kind to my baby." Like, no, but they need to call us more, and like this very like babying mindset, which I've never had. Um, because I always wanted to raise my kids in a way that the moment they step out the door, can they make decisions for themselves? Should I go out with this boy? Am I safe to go, do this? Should I say no to drugs? Like, as mom, I have to teach these kids to be able to stand up for themselves. And so, yes, it is really hard as a mom seeing your child like he called, I think it was 2 Sundays ago, from here to here was completely bruised on both arms from a field training they had. Yeah, that really
They were like
sucks.
this big, like they're as big. It was like,
Huge. Um, but some of the moms out there are like, why why can't they call us more like, and it's almost like this softer generation is going into the army now. And I mean, even my son is struggling with it. He's like, because he was a prison guard, he was a correctional officer before he went in, and for the most part, really had his head on straight. And then he sees these kids who are like, we can sneak our phones into the barracks. No one will know,
Yeah.
right? And he's frustrated with it. Is that something that's new? Or
No,
was that kind of around when you were in?
no. I mean, so, if we're talking about, type, right? Type or, you know, uh, I'll say it like this. The way I often coach and everything when stuff like this comes up and everything is symbol and signal. So, right, the symbol is the phone, but the signal is like the testing the boundary or whatever else,
Yes.
right? So, the symbol has changed and everything, but the signal really hasn't. So, did we have cell phones in that same way? No, right? But guys were trying to, sneak food in or, sneak dirty magazines in, that type of stuff,
Yeah.
that,
Hmm.
totally different, nowadays. But like that was happening. And then, were there some kids there that, moms were coddling and, wanted to hear from more and everything else? Yeah, absolutely. Calling drill sergeants. I remember that. And a drill sergeant would walk
Wow.
out, like, if mom calls me in, we're going to have problems. So, like, uh, this idea of a softer generation and everything, I actually don't buy into it. You know,
Hmm.
my time in the military and everything, because like every single, new group of privates we got in, were roughly the same, the entire time. Right. And you've got to build them up and everything else. And then I went into, like I said, went into, my gym, local CrossFit. I ended up having, local CrossFit, Battletown Athletics, and I had local powerlifting. And one thing that we had in that and everything is we had kids programs and we had teen programs. And again, like, you know, these kids were not any weaker or different or anything than we were before either. So, I had, over 20 years experience with them and everything. And like to me, I'm like the symbol has changed, but the signal has not, you know, uh,
Yeah.
boundary, disobedience, whatever else. And once you start to apply, leadership and, everything else to it, every single kid, snaps to it and everything.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't think that's anything new. I think it's just, you know, life and people and, how they, are and how they're going to respond to growth opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for me personally that, yeah, I would be the one to try to get some chew or get some nicotine or get something
Yeah.
passed, because I'd go in there with different vices and how am I going to manage that. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah. So, what is something that you learned that has really shaped your life
Yeah.
today?
Yeah. Leadership for sure. So, it started, in basic training, in fact. And the first time that I got put in charge, of a squad, because you rotate through positions and everything. And I think that,
Hmm.
and, there's, in a sense, there's no rhyme or reason. They put the first, platoon guy, they put the first squad leaders and all of that. And I think it was really done alphabetically. And my name just happened to be there and you're in charge of these guys for a week or minutes sometimes if you did something dumb and got fired and then you get put back in those positions. And I think that was the first time it really clicked to me and everything because it there were people complaining, there was people struggling, there was all of that, and it was the first time to really look at somebody and say like, yeah, but we have to get this done anyways, so what does it matter? And then when I got to my first duty station and everything, even though I was in the old guard, that's where I struggled. You asked me in basic training. No, my first struggles was probably my first 2 years in the unit and everything because the discipline was still there and everything, but it was so much more lax than basic training, where it was just locked in, and I was just like, I know exactly what I know what I need to do and everything. And um, what got me into trouble a lot was actually that I was smart. And as soon as they opened up that discipline a little bit, I started exploring that probably a little bit too creatively and everything. I was getting myself, into trouble and, everything else. And um, I finally had a platoon sergeant. I don't know why or anything else, but he just decided that that the proper thing to do with me was going to be promote me, and everybody was shocked, everybody. And so I remember he called me in. I think I'm in trouble again, and he's like, "Get your uniforms ready. You're going to the board." And I was like, "What? Okay." So um, got my uniforms ready, went to the board, passed the board. I had enough points to be promoted to E5. He called me in right after the presentation of my rank when they gave me my rank, and I walked in there, and he said words that still to this day uh, just are etched in my memory, etched in my mind, and those were um, their lives are in your hands. They will live or die because of you, right? Even though we're at the old guard and everything, and I know like they're not actually like, but I got the point that hey, someday most of these kids are going to go to other units and they're going to deploy. So whether have taught them discipline, have taught them their jobs, because we still had to, shoot, move, communicate on top of everything else we were doing. We'd still go to the field and train and everything else. And for whatever reason, that just hit me so hard. And that responsibility, it's actually one of the things I've based my leadership training and everything. The steps in it are awareness, responsibility, authority, agency, and accountability. And that's where that started to come from. And it was the first time that the awareness was there and the responsibility was there in just a moment, in one single moment it changed.
Yeah.
And so I really took that to heart, to shape my team and to shape those guys into something that I was not at the time, and then that shaped myself into a better soldier, a better leader. Um, and then just was it like 8 months later, again, kind of unheard of and everything. He sent me back to the board to be promoted again. So I went from E4 to E6 in about 8 months. They're really, really fast. And um, he actually left. We had a new platoon sergeant, and I was kind of like lost as an E6 and everything because it was so fast. And now you have a whole squad. And he said the next piece that really hit me hard, and because he called me in one day and he's like, you're having a hard time controlling your teams, so that means you're having a hard time controlling your team leaders. What's going on? And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I knew what to do as a E5, and he goes, okay, when you're an E5, you're a god to them. You are God, right? They don't eat until you tell them to. They don't sleep until you tell them to, and all of that. When you're an E6, you're their parent now.
Just made a shift. Yeah.
Yep. Now you're their parent. So now you need to guide them and everything. And so sorry, her little alarm went off, but I think she's fine. She was sneezing. So he tells me that and everything, and I was like, oh, okay, so I need to relax. Like that's why I'm messing up, because I'm stepping all over my team leaders who are supposed to be God, and I'm supposed to just be parenting these guys and shuttling them along and everything, but still making sure that, I'm, that archetype on my team leader. So started to go really well. And that's actually about the time that I got out of there and went to the National Guard. Now that I had this in mind and everything, that's where things really, really started to work for me. And the next lesson that really came into my head was the Army's definition of leadership, which I still use today, which is, to provide purpose, motivation, and direction to accomplish, the company's mission. And that was huge for me because now, right, like the way that locked into my head and everything was almost like, an algorithm or a structure, a system, right? So if I understood, the purpose of what we were doing, right, the individual members' motivations, uh, the direction that falls on me. So what's the plan and everything, to do what accomplish the company's mission. So I need to also understand inside of my squad, well, what's the platoon's mission? What's the company, mission? What is, the battalion's mission and all of that, so that I can understand, all of this working together. And at that point, that's when it really started to click for me and started to, understand timelines and backwards planning and how to accomplish things and how to get my teams to accomplish things. And yeah, that's when my career and everything, I think, really, I don't know, just took off to, different levels and everything. Because even though I was only an E6, when we deployed to Iraq, I actually got put in charge of a platoon, so even though
Wow.
I was down
Yeah.
the rank, wasn't an E7, um, they, the CEO and the first sergeant and then came to me, and we're, of all of the E6s in the company, all the squad leaders and everything. And they were like, hey, we're short one. We're not picking one up because we think you're the guy.
Wow.
And so I
Yeah.
had my own platoon in Iraq, so.
That's so neat.
Yeah. So, I always envision just like all this screaming and yeah, you got that at basic, but it almost sounds like there's a lot more maybe mentorship.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you get to your unit. There's a lot of screaming at basic. There's a lot of screaming when you first get to your unit. um,
Mhm.
there's a lot of yelling, a lot of intimidation and everything. But yeah, as you rise through the ranks and as you're known and they figure out who you are and are trusted and everything, there is a lot of you know mentorship and everything. And like I said, I think that was part of my problem when I came out, was maybe I because I didn't have those relationships developed and everything with everybody, and I saw them failing at their jobs. I went back to, leadership 101 and directorship and everything else.
Mhm.
Tim, that's actually the guy you had on recently. I meant to reach out to him and tell him that, because he was talking about how he was a leader and he felt hurt, by that and everything. I forget what his name is. The guy that you're in his Bible group or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Mark
Mark.
Hummel.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, man, I need to reach out to him and tell him, like, it's okay, man. That's just how it is. That's just growing
Yeah.
pains of leadership. Like,
Yeah.
you grow past that, but there are times when you do have to fall back to that. Even
Yeah.
now in my life, there are times, if we're in a, somehow get ourselves into a bad situation, which can happen, my family knows the voice that I'm going to put on when they need to listen to me. And there's no time for questioning and everything else,
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
need to get us out of that situation, or, whatever
Yeah.
else it
Yeah.
is. So
It's
there's
a it's
still a
a
time.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a good tool with for the right season, the right thing, like to go there. And yeah. I like to wrap up this with what would you tell a new booty right now? What would you tell a new recruit?
So this is crazy, but this is what I did. And it's like the opposite of what everybody tells you. They tell you, like, keep your head down, keep quiet, don't volunteer for anything. I actually volunteered for everything.
This is the second time we heard that.
Yeah. One of our friends told our son that right before he went in. He's
He's
like,
like,
volunteer for
man,
everything.
I got like helicopters. He's like, I got to do the most amazing things.
Yep. Yep. Volunteer for absolutely everything. Every single opportunity really is a growth opportunity. Did I clean out latrines and do crappy work because of it? Yes. But did it, when something was great, come along, did they already put my name down for it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that, I went to, yes, I, you know, uh, rode in helicopters, rappelled out of them and jumped out of planes and, got my my EIB, my expert infantryman's badge, and got to on one of my deployments, because of all of this and everything, I got to be attached to the intelligence, the general, the intelligence officer of all of Iraq, and got to fly around everywhere. Right, I got to see Abraham Ziggurat out there in the desert. Where they say, Ur of the Chaldeans was and everything,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you know
Oh, cool.
I
That'd be
got to
so cool.
see,
Yeah.
the 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 Tigris and the Euphrates. Like I got to fly up into the mountains, just all these like things. I got to go to Lebanon, like all of these things, and I swear it's because I volunteered to clean out latrines.
Yeah. And it makes sense because they're like, this dude over here, he's going to do whatever we need. Like, let's like really take him under our wings,
Well, to me,
Because if,
it's like somebody who's looking to get by with the bare bones, like do just only what is required. It's like, yeah, you just kind of like stay clear from those guys. So good. That was good. Good Indian brother. Appreciate you so much. Where can people reach out to you if they want to find you on social media? You do coaching and stuff. Should be very beneficial for you to reach out to Josh here. Where can they reach you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest place is Facebook. I tend to be the fastest there and everywhere, but
Me
yeah,
too.
just shout Price, and there's a red beard awaiting you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.